Hey, how you doing? It is I, the Terrific Lady, otherwise known as Brandy, and welcome to Retro Horror School and happiest of Fridays to you. In 1 week, on June 20th, it will be my birthday. So all next week, I have taken off from work, as I like to call it, a birthday present to myself, and I'm going to be going to escape room and having a badass time. Oh, but that's next week. This weekend, I'm gonna chill, probably watch John Carpenter's Starman for the first time because I've had people tell me that I need to watch it. But enough of that. On to today's video. Today's video is a continuation of the horror subgenre 101 series that I have been doing. I have talked about slashers. I have talked about gory horror movies. I have talked about psychological horror movies. And today we're getting spooky and talking about a really cool subgenre called the paranormal subgenre. What paranormal likes to do is it likes to delve into the areas of the unknown and the supernatural. And through the decades of the 1970s to the 2010s, you saw the paranormal subgenre evolve. In the 1970s, you saw a lot of supernatural movies that dealt with religion because during that time there was a battle of sorts going on between the secular and the Christian folks in the United States, where Christians felt that things like feminism and more women working out of the home and single mothers and rebellious teens, like people turning away from God. There was that big fear, and a lot of horror movies from the 70s really capitalized on that fear. The Omen is one example because you literally have the Antichrist as a child. And what better way to kind of portray the fact that all children are kind of evil, rebellious beings than having a literal child as the Antichrist? In the 1980s, you saw a big mix of the paranormal and the supernatural crossing over with home invasion horror. So a fear of our spaces and our personal spaces being invaded, because where are you safe if you're not safe in your own home, and especially against a threat you cannot see? So films like Poltergeist and The Changeling greatly showcased those fears and just showed how the paranormal and the unknown could invade our everyday safe spaces. In the 1990s, you saw paranormal horror steer away from this kind of like the very straightforward narrative of there's this evil, there's this entity, there's this paranormal being, there is this ghost or spirit or demon or the Antichrist. And it steered a lot towards movies that had narrative twists to them, like Stir of Echoes and The Sixth Sense. The 2000s, at least the early 2000s, kind of carried on with that theme of having twists, such as in the 2001 supernatural movie, paranormal supernatural movie, The Others. And then you also started to see the rise of paranormal franchises such as Paranormal Activity, which came out in 2007. The usage of the found footage format in Paranormal Activity kind of gave you a more close-up, kind of inside view, fly on the wall view as to the horrors that are going on inside this house. In the 2010s, you saw paranormal horror cycling back just a little bit to the horror of the 1980s, where the evil is invading your home and threatening the people that you care about and love. So in movies like The Conjuring and Insidious, which both have in turn also launched their own franchises. So that is a carryover from the 2000s. And in a way, it's not just showcasing like supernatural, paranormal, home invasion horror. It's also kind of mixing the paranormal with this family drama going on. So it pushes it into kind of these tenser, depths, and a bit more higher stakes. So now, what makes a paranormal film a paranormal film? So let's break down the characteristics of a paranormal film. First off, what do paranormal films usually feature? You got it. It's in the name. The proof is in the pudding, the paranormal. So you're going to see ghosts, demons, poltergeists, really weird, evil things. As I mentioned in The Omen, you have the boy as a demonic, or Damien as a demonic antichrist. That is the main, I would have to say, the main characteristic of a paranormal film is that it deals with the paranormal. Another characteristic is that the way a paranormal film creates its horror is through just very unknown or unexplained events. And you can see this, as I mentioned, in Paranormal Activity, where you got this camera, this setup camera, capturing these unknown events, and they don't know what this couple doesn't know what the hell is going on. That's another big characteristic of paranormal horror. You don't know what the hell is going on. Another characteristic of paranormal horror, especially ones that deal with ghosts, is that if a movie deals with a ghost or a spirit, the spirit, more often than not, unless they're a very vengeful spirit, if they have unfinished business or they want to pass on a message before they go to the other side. And the spirit cannot rest because of this. Sometimes their unfinished business never gets resolved and they're stuck in their place forever. So, for instance, in the film The Others, you got all these spirits in this house in England that have unfinished business. Paranormal movies can also include psychic phenomena such as telepathy, telekinesis, premonitions, and clairvoyance. I would say the prime example of this is Carrie, where you got a girl with telekinetic powers who unleashes and wreaks havoc near the end of the movie. A common setting, too, of a paranormal film, which is a big characteristic, are usually houses, hotels, graveyards. Think the Amityville Horror, where the house was supposedly haunted and all this weird shit was going down. That's where paranormal films are usually set. And finally, the mood of a paranormal film is always very creepy and foreboding. That always leaves you tense and on the edge of your seat because you're right with the characters, discovering with them. They don't know what the hell's going on, neither do you until much, much later. Just like all the other subgenres, the subgenre chocolate box that I have discussed, paranormal horror movies have their own different kind of subgenres, their own little flavors within that box of chocolate. So let's break down the different kinds of subgenres within the paranormal subgenre. First up, you got the ghosts and spirits kinds of paranormal horror, which, as the name says, it focuses on ghosts and spirits, on hauntings and on apparitions. So, for instance, The Sixth Sense, you got a little boy who sees dead people. Next up, you got the haunted house paranormal type films. These films usually deal with a home that has a sinister past and was often bought for cheap.
It's free real estate.
These families never learn. They just let the cheap price tag guide them to the horrors within. The Conjuring is a good example of a haunted house movie. Then you got the possession type of horror, where you've got a demon or an entity that has taken over an individual. And while I mentioned Exorcist as a psychological horror in my last video, it could also be considered a possession paranormal movie as well, because you had the demon possessing the young girl Reagan. Then you got the paranormal movies about devils, demons, and hell that explore what else? The themes of devils, demons, and hell, and of the ultimate evil. What is the gold standard for this? The Omen. 100% for sure. Because the Antichrist is going to grow up and destroyed the world, which ends up happening later in the Omen 3, I believe. That's neither here nor there. Now, paranormal movies about the witches and the occult deals with what else? With witches and the occult. Notice how a lot of these names are kind of self-explanatory. These movies deal a lot with dark rituals, ancient curses. I think the premier example of this is Robert Eggers' The Witch. It's a horror movie set in 17th century England, where a lot of stuff goes down. And last but not least, supernatural power deals with people who have supernatural or otherworldly powers. Carrie, as I mentioned previously, is another premier example of that type of paranormal movie. And there you have it. We are finished with our 101 dive into paranormal films. So what I would like to know from you is, what is your favorite paranormal film? Let me know in the comments below. And sadly, class is dismissed, everybody. But I will see you next time. Bye.